a biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
On a Monday, we do like to check in with the Australian Christian Lobby. Today, Nicholas Lay, the ACL Northern Territory Director, is joining us. Nicholas, a special welcome back to 2020.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Nicholas, there's some good news coming out of the Northern Territory insofar as some amendments to the Anti-Discrimination Act. Where are things at there, and what does that mean for ordinary people?
Yeah, so, this is a topic we've talked a lot about. We've been advocating since 2022, since the Anti-Discrimination Act was amended. And at that time, the Country Liberal Party in opposition made commitments that they would repeal those specific amendments around Christian schooling and offence-based laws. And I suppose the update for this week is that the Attorney General has presented I guess in words, what she would like these amendments to look like. So it's it's another step forward in seeing this election commitment by the CLP fulfilled. But at this stage, it's just words. The expectation is that there will be a bill tabled in July. So we're looking forward to seeing that bill, what it includes, and obviously we can talk about it more then. But from what we've got from the Attorney General, just speaking about the issue publicly, it sounds like it will protect faith-based schools, giving them the ability to hire teachers. So that's an excellent thing, being able to uphold their school ethos. So that's a great thing. In terms of the offence-based laws, now, to give some context, in the NT, when these laws came in, they were the most broad vilification type laws we've seen in Australia. And so they're obviously not good, and they agreed to repeal those laws. And so they have said that they would do that. They said they're going to get rid of this offence-based laws in the NT. Unfortunately, though, they did mention that instead of having offence-based laws, they're going to still bring in a type of vilification law that we see in other states and territories. And the wording around it is pivoting from offence to incite hatred, serious contempt, or severe ridicule. So
let's just pause and just reflect on this for a few moments, because clearly there's other states around the nation that still have offend as being a key word in their anti-vilification legislation. So in the Territory, there's a plan to take out offend, which is, I guess, just so generalised, isn't it? It could be you can be offended by anyone wants to be offended, they can be offended, and people are very easily offended today. But replacing it with those other strong words, how big a change do you think that sounds like it reflects? From your heart, what sort of a big change is that?
Yeah, look, it's obviously a reduction in the scope of these laws where they can be applied to. Obviously, offence is such a broad term that could be interpreted many different ways. So bringing it back to the words are incite hatred, serious contempt, or severe ridicule is a step in the right direction, absolutely. But I suppose, these words, they seem like a high standard, a high bar when we think about those words in our head. But we know in actual fact, to give an example, Queensland has these words in their vilification laws. And we have heard about Jasmine Sussex, who is a breastfeeding expert. Essentially, there was a man that was a biological man trying to breastfeed a newborn, and she responded and said men can't breastfeed. And so she's found herself before the Queensland Human Rights Commissioner for vilification under those same words. And then there's another example, most people probably know Lyle Shelton, a past director of ACL, responding to the drag queen story time, said that drag queens don't make good role models for children. And he's been before the commissioner for the Human Rights Commissioner and in court for 5 years defending himself over those statements. So while those words seem like a high bar, we see in practice that people are still getting caught up in this vilification law, unfortunately.
Okay, so offend might be gone. These other words like incite hatred, serious contempt, or severe ridicule, they're going to still be there. That's not necessarily the ideal, though, is it? What would you like to see as the ideal? I mean, if you had the Australian Christian lobby, ideal way that these sorts of things ought to be in law, what would it look like?
I think a complete removal of all vilification law would be a great step. And it can seem wild to some people, but really, I don't think these laws are conducive to freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And I had an opportunity, I was very grateful to meet with the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner multiple times. And, I've discussed these types of concerns and examples. And I gave also some theoretical examples of, in my perspective, just Bible-believing Christians speaking biblical truths in a God-honouring way. And unfortunately, I walked away from those conversations, believing that as Bible-believing Christians speaking biblical truths, we are in danger of getting caught up in these laws just for being true to that. So it is it's not conducive to freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And interestingly, just a side note, we've had estimates here in the NT, and they were talking about the work of the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, and it seemed they're completely, overwhelmed in the amount of work they're doing on basic discrimination, sexual harassment, and now you've got this vilification provision as well. And, they can take up to 3 to 6 months to dismiss a claim. Like if there's something that's even just baseless and vexatious, it can take 3 to 6 months just to dismiss them. And so I think let's just get rid of vilification, and the Commissioner can respond more timely to actual cases of discrimination and sexual harassment, because we want those things dealt with timely rather than, I guess, getting caught up like Lyle has for 5 years around this vilification stuff.
As those who get caught up in it say, the process is the punishment, and there's costs and all sorts of things associated with that. So some positive movement there in the Northern Territory, but you'd like to see that go further and remove those things from vilification law altogether. Because just simply defending a biblical truth, like marriage between a man and a woman, the way we do family, it's, these things have been a part of the history of the world, but now people are offended and think that you're inciting hatred if you actually say marriage is between a man and a woman. Those sorts of things challenging. Hey, lots of other things going on in the Northern Territory too. Let me ask you about a trial of pepper spray in the Northern Territory for personal protection. Our mind is racing now as to what it's like just for people needing this sort of protection on the street. Any thoughts from you about how dangerous it might be in some places on the street?
Yeah, look, this is quite an interesting one, quite unique one to the NT. And so so there's been a trial announced. There's going to be a 12-month trial of this for personal protection. Now, look, this is not a typical bread and butter issue of ACL particularly, but I suppose myself living in Alice Springs, being a Territorian, been a victim of crime many times. I do have a personal opinion on this, and I do support this trial, and it will be interesting to see how it goes. And I suppose the call for it has really come from, vulnerable people with a disability, the elderly. There's quite indiscriminate attacks being made on people that just simply aren't able to escape an offence. Like, they could just be in their home, doors locked, everything, in a wheelchair. People break in and they just have no way of getting away. And so, the use of pepper spray, OC spray, it has a temporary effect. It's really going to hurt your eyes. And apparently it causes causes short-term blindness, which I didn't know. But, I guess it's just a tool for people to have up their sleeve to get away from offender, to be able to call the police while they respond. And so I think it's a fairly common sense thing. Obviously people can choose whether or not to get it. But it seems reasonable. And it kind of came out of, there was a discussion recently about an ex-deputy mayor of Alice Springs talking about crime, and he mentioned that he had pepper spray and even a taser. So this was illegal at the time because he was born blind, partially blind, and had had many strokes and different health issues, and he was feeling very vulnerable in his home. So he just wanted something to protect himself. And, the kind of narrative around this goes that, well, there's some concerns about it, that offenders will start using this sort of stuff. To me, from, listening to those arguments, when people are, breaking into your house with axes and, all sorts of horrendous weapons, I don't think they're going to swap it out for a can of pepper spray, and it's a bit difficult for, an old lady to defend herself in that way if it's, unless they have a can of pepper spray, just might be an easy way to get away. And, when you experience crime like this, you are going to try and get away from it. You are going to try and evade it. You're not just going to, just, I guess, take it.
Yeah. Nicholas, you mentioned that you have personally been on the receiving end of some violent, I guess you are, I'm going to ask you, you've been attacked or, what sort of things have you experienced personally?
Yeah, so, unfortunately, if you live in Alice Springs long enough, it's more a matter of time, not if. And so we've had a couple of instances of break-ins and stuff. And so I really see the pepper spray as a tool. My tool that's really worked in the past for me, there was one night we had people trying to get through the window, and I just, turn on this really loud, scary voice and yell out, and that has been 100% effective so far in deterring crime. So that's kind of my tool I use.
Can you give me an example of that? Give us a Nicholas loud, scary voice.
I don't think I could even perform it. It's more in the moment. It just comes to you when you're, been woken up in the middle of the
night. Pepper spray, supposing it becomes law, it's going to be a trial. Supposing it becomes law and everyone has a can of pepper spray sitting either in their handbag or attached to their belt, the image that comes to me is this idea of, in America where everyone's carrying a firearm, where every woman has a gun in her handbag, and because everyone's armed in some way, there's a certain deterrence in there. Do you think it could be a deterrence to crime if criminals or people on the streets who want to accost you and assault you know that you have pepper spray? Do you think that'll be the sort of deterrent necessary?
Yeah, I think as it stands, particularly there's been a lot of youth and stuff breaking into homes, and they sort of get captured and released, and there's no real deterrent for crime, and so I think if I got sprayed in the eyes with some pepper spray if I was breaking into someone's house, I'd definitely probably think twice about doing it again, because I think it really hurts from what I understand.
Extreme irritation, fierce burning sensations on the skin and the eyes, and I think when you breathe it in, it very, very destructive to your membranes, mucous membranes. I think that's where the effect is ongoing. Hey,
okay.
Another issue that's going on, the assisted suicide, VAD, euthanasia in the Northern Territory. Where are things at with these things as they're debated and people are talking about them? And, of course, there's an Aboriginal community in the mix as well. How does that look in the NT?
Yeah, so the CLP has doing another inquiry into this. There's going to be public consultation in August, we know now. That's just of word of mouth, so we can expect that. Labor are pushing ahead with drafting their own laws around this stuff. And so we are expecting that this issue will be front and centre in the debate here in the Territory very soon. So we've sort of been proactive in this, trying to campaign on multiple fronts. I've also been doing, I know that there is significant opposition amongst Aboriginal people in town and out bush, and so I've really been trying to elevate their concerns, because they can sometimes miss out on these consultations. So, I did a bit of walking around Alice Springs, interviewing people at random, and also out bush. And I was quite surprised actually how much opposition there is amongst Aboriginal people, like consistently. Like almost virtually everyone I spoke to was opposed to it in some way or form. I guess, but getting someone to speak on the record in an interview form where we record it is the challenge. And we did get a whole bunch of recordings which we're going to put out there just to sort of highlight this issue, because there is quite a concern out bush, and I think it really needs to be part of the debate.
Is it the case? Aboriginal culture broadly is based on like an extended family structure. And I did note there's a number of different reasons why Aboriginal people might reject this, because, that family structure involves caring for one another at all stages of life and death. And as one Aboriginal leader was commenting, the last thing the Aboriginal people need is another avenue to death. There's a lot of different dimensions that Aboriginal people hold that maybe not held by other non-Aboriginal Australians. Yeah, there's certainly there's a cultural element. There's also the faith element as well, large in there as well. And when I ask people, what's your process when mum or grandmother is unwell, and they said that they would, if they knew they were going to die, they would want to bring them back to their home community and care for them there. And, it's very much part of the mourning process when someone is sick and unwell, and, a chance to say goodbye and all that. So that's a big part of the culture. And, and unfortunately, I think this would be not just another avenue of death in the Territory for Aboriginal people, but also it's going to prevent people from accessing health services. I've heard that from multiple sources, multiple people, that doesn't matter how good your education program is going to be around this, there is still going to be apprehension, there's still going to be fear. Anecdotally, people are not going to be as interested in going to the clinics, to palliative care, all the rest, which, we don't want another barrier for health services in the NT. We don't need another one. I know there'll be listeners who'll be keeping some of those issues in their prayers. Let me just let you go in just a moment. Hey, it's almost the end of financial year. Any special appeals and things going on with the Australian Christian Lobby? I mean, you've got some financial needs too. Is there anything you can reflect on?
Yeah, so obviously we've just come out of the big federal election, and we've put a lot of resources, time, finances into that. And, that was a good thing for equipping Christians, speaking truth in the public square. But just as importantly, now that the election is over, there is a quick pivot needed to be in the corridors of Parliament, building upon the relationships that we've already made and building new ones with the new MPs, and advocating for truth, for biblical truth, for good laws, for good policy. And so, we're just asking if people are able to please support our end of financial year campaign, our appeal to reach our goal of 1.37 million by June 30, which is in 7 days from now. So, just asking, please support this important work that we do in helping us make truth public.
And I know there's a lot of listeners do really appreciate the good work that all of the team does at the Australian Christian Lobby. And for those who want to connect with Nicholas as the Northern Territory Director, or to make a donation for those end of financial year needs at the Australian Christian Lobby, let me point you to acl.org.au. ACL stands for Australian Christian Lobby, acl.org.au. Nicholas, thanks so much for another great update today on 2020.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.